What is going on, traders? We got a lot to discuss. Before we get into that, like, subscribe, comment your thoughts below. Let's get into the video. So, in my last video, I said that 504 level was your key level, your golden ticket for more upside. 504.7 if you really want to be safe. And we finally got that break out of the supply and demand zone at around 504. So, what is next? So, today we made 505 our pretty much key level here. And the reason why I say that is because if we look at quant data, we saw that a lot of call exposure came in for the 505 level on the SPY April 26th. And then we see more exposure for the 510 level. All right. Now, towards close, we saw that bears tried to step in, push us a little bit lower, and failed. They failed to get us below 505, which is a very good sign that we could be seeing more upside heading into tomorrow. If we can get back into the supply and demand zone at around 507, 507.2 to be safe, we could be heading as high as 510. We can be looking at a move like this if we get inside here and then head towards 510. Okay, which also explains what we're seeing on quant data. Now, if you want access to this, link is in the description below. They have all types of things, dark pools data, options flow, all of that. So feel free to check it out. Link is in the description below. But moving on, as far as the SPY go heading into tomorrow, what am I expecting? Now, currently in after hours we are moving, we're moving pretty well, and I would like to see maybe somewhat of a retest in the morning. Maybe we head as low as about 503.8 and then head higher. But right now it looks like we could be looking at a gap up scenario. Now, it's pretty early to say that, but that is on the table. And I also told you guys that heading into events such as CPI data, GDP, PCE, the market tends to run up into those events. So we could be looking at further upside heading into tomorrow. Now, do I think we're just gonna, rally or anything like that? Not exactly, especially when we have earnings such as Meta and Microsoft coming and Google. So it's really tough to say. If anything, we could just be looking at some type of consolidation heading into tomorrow where we just kind of like hug under the supply and demand zone around here, where we could see some move like this. And then maybe if Meta earnings or whatever earnings, Microsoft, Google, GDP, whatever news causes the next jump, we could see more upside. Okay, so that is the move that I am looking at. Right now, these guys to the left are pretty much holding us here. Okay, they're trying to hold us here. Okay, right here. And remember, I tell you guys all the time, wicks tell you where sellers and buyers are. So if if we do get somewhat of a retest tomorrow, again, we could be looking at a move like this where we just pretty much consolidate between these two supply and demand zones. And then whatever news comes in, we could break higher from there. So that is the potential move that I am looking at as far as the SPY. As far as my target for now, I'm going to stick to that 510 target. We could go as high as 514, 515. I did mention that in another video. It was about 2, 3 videos ago. So feel free to check that out. But that is what I'm looking at as far as the SPY. Also, I meant to draw this out for you guys. So what is going on? Here we go. So yeah, this could potentially be our target. 512. We can go as high as 515. So that is what I'm looking at as far as the SPY. Now, as far as downside, if we just so happen to get back below 504, I would say 503.8 to really be safe. If we get back inside the supply and demand zone, we could be heading back towards that 500 level. Okay, where we see one of these moves, and then we'll probably head towards 510. So that is a move to look out for, and it would make sense if that does happen tomorrow. I'm not saying it's going to happen tomorrow, but it would make perfect sense for that to happen tomorrow, considering how much we moved to the upside today. And we probably will be preparing for either GDP or whatever earnings decides to boost the market to the upside. All right. So triple Qs. So triple Qs, pretty much the same idea here. I told you guys in the last video, as long as we're holding above 416, triple Qs is fine. All right. Now, I wasn't too certain. I wasn't too confident. I was more like 50-50 in the last video, so I will say that much. But the levels were there. I told you guys 504. We want to get back above 500 on the SPY, and we held 516 on Qs. Now, honestly, I thought we were just going to head towards 422, and then our next target would have been around 424, 425. So we did a lot more than I expected today. So that's kind of scary if you're a bull. I mean, it's a good thing short term, but that is pretty scary if you're a bull. I mean, we're at 427 after hours. So my next target right now is about 428.5, 429 range, where we start heading towards these guys right here in this area. If we can break out of the supply and demand zone, I would say 430. If we can get above 430, we can head as high as about 433.5, 434 on the triple Qs. As far as heading into tomorrow, I will say that a retest is on the table as well. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but you shouldn't be surprised if it happens. Where we head towards the bottom of the supply and demand zone at around 423.5, and then we start to head higher. Now you can call this a head and shoulders inverse head and shoulders pattern. I do see the vision there. It's not the cleanest in my opinion. I would prefer more consolidation on this shoulder and maybe some consolidation on this shoulder. But given how fast we're moving, I don't think this shoulder is going to consolidate too much tomorrow, at least for the 4 hour time frame. Now it probably looks different on lower time frames. Yeah, still not a fan. Okay, not a fan, but I do see the vision. I do see the vision if you do want to consider this a head and shoulders pattern. If anything, I would say this is more so forming a cup and handle. So ideally, if we do get that retest tomorrow, I would like to see something such as this. This is actually, yeah, something like this where we're just I probably could have used the regression channels to do that, but you guys get the idea. Where we see something like this, we kind of consolidate in here and then we break higher. This will form our handle. So be on the lookout for that. But right now, triple Qs does look pretty good as far as upside, I would say. All right. 430 is your next target. You want to break above 430 and you can head as high as 433.5, 434. As far as downside goes, you break back below this supply and demand zone, 423.5. I would say 423 to be really safe. You head back where these guys are, these sellers are in this 423 range, and you can head back as low as 420, 419 range. Okay. So be on the lookout for those moves on the triple Qs. Now, if we're talking about the NASDAQ, so remember when I told you guys that I told you guys in this like in two videos. If you're new here, then you probably won't have no idea what I'm talking about. But anytime we break out of a pattern and we roll over, it gets pretty bad, as you guys can see here on the Nasdaq, right? But what happens when the opposite happens? When the opposite happens, typically what happens is that we hit the top or we get back inside the pattern, pause, and then we get back and hit the top of the pattern and then we start to head down. That's usually how it goes. It's not 100%, but that's usually how it goes. If you guys want an example, because I showed you guys an example on Tesla, Tesla is honestly the perfect example right here. And mind you, Tesla had earnings. As you guys can see, the same thing happened here. When you break out of a pattern, or we'll call this a false breakout, and it starts to roll over, it tends to start rolling over and then it goes under the pattern. That's usually what happens when you have a false breakout. Okay. This falling wedge pattern or descending wedge, whatever you want to call it, rolled over, fell under, and now earnings has caused Tesla to retest the top, not only the top of the supply and demand zone, but the top of this falling wedge pattern. So we could be looking at the same scenario or the same situation as far as the NASDAQ right now, where just like Tesla, we broke out, rolled over, and the reason why this is a false breakout is because the expected move is it should be way higher. Okay, so we rolled over, we fell under the pattern, and we can be looking at the same thing we saw with Tesla, like pretty much the exact same scenario as we saw on Tesla, where we do one of these moves, we hit about 17,800, maybe 17,750 if we just stay inside the supply and demand zone, and then we start to head lower on the Nasdaq. What is going on? Here we go. Where we start to head lower on the Nasdaq. Now remember, I told you guys my selling target on the Nasdaq is still 16,800. Okay, so if this move does happen, where we head right back down here, it can be pretty bad. Okay, it can be pretty bad. So that's what I'm looking at so far as the NASDAQ. Your key levels, as far as a retest, you're looking at about 17,540, 17,450 will be the lowest I'm looking at as far as a retest. Maybe 17,400, 17,450, 17,400, around that level. Um, Let me actually mark it out so you guys can get somewhat of a visual. So we'll pretty much go right back to where these guys are. Okay, remember wicks tell you where sellers and buyers are, and then we potentially head higher. So this will be about 17,530, 17,550 range, and then we head towards that 17,750, 17,800 max. The next question is, can we potentially head higher? I think we can. Okay, given what we have coming up as far as earnings and things like that, if those earnings do come in good, and I mean like all of them, maybe not Intel, but at least Google and Microsoft, we do have the potential to at least go back to 18,000. Now, mind you, okay, because I know someone's like, well, what about your bearish sentiment? My retest my retest sentiment, okay, because remember, I kept saying I wanted to see somewhat of a retest to the upside. I think we can go as high as 18,150. That's what I'm looking at as far as a potential retest. We can go as high as 18,150. After that, I think we're done. I mean, we can obviously go a little higher. There's no like exact pinpoint price, but after that, I think we're pretty much done. But we'll see what happens. Okay, we will see what happens. But for now, short term, I want this retest to happen. I'm loving this retest that's happening. That way, I can get ready to start loading the boat on shorts. As far as ES goes, so ES, I put this out in the Discord. I have a price target of 5140, 5150. As you guys can see, um, this played out. This wasn't a false breakdown. This actually played out very well. So the fact that we're heading back in here is actually a good sign if you are bullish. What I would like to see on ES is us break above 5124, 5125 if you want to be safe and count that as your psych level. And then we start heading to the top of this pattern. 5140 is my target. We can head as about 5170, 5180. Okay, before we potentially break down, or we can break out. Okay, not really counting on the breakout scenario, but we'll see when we get there. As far as downside, we break back below 5080. I mentioned this in the last video. If we get above 5080, then we're pretty much just shooting to the upside. But 5080, you get back below 5080. Granted, there is turbulence, so it could play games. If we get below 5080, it could play games, maybe some false breakdown, and then we get back in here. But 5080, and then after that, you're looking at 5050. You break below 5050, then I think you're done. You're heading back towards that 5,000 level, and then you get back into the supply and demand zone. You can start heading towards this 4,800 supply and demand zone, okay, which we have yet to even retest. We have not retested this. Let me zoom up. This supply and demand zone, we have not retested this 4,800. We pretty much left it in the dust. So yeah, that is something to look out for. I'm pretty sure other traders are mentioning that target if they like perma bears or something like that. But regardless, that is a level to keep on your radar at least for, I would say, the long term or the long term bearish side. I don't know. But regardless, that's what I'm looking at as far as the ES. 5080 is your key level for the downside. 5050 is where you're really going to be concerned at. Upside, 5124, 5125. And then my target is about 5140, 5150 for now as far as ES, which would play around that 510 level for the SPY. Okay. As far as stocks, so I don't go over stocks enough with you guys. I'm trying to get into that more. Netflix. So I think I mentioned this in the last video. So in the Discord, I told you guys, well, not the Discord, I mentioned, well, I alerted that we are in Netflix 5080 calls. We got in at around 5052 when Netflix was around 5052, 5053 range. Why am I saying 5050? I'm still thinking about ES. 552, 553 range. We got in 580 calls on Netflix for April 26th. Take profit at 40% or price target of 590. And then we took profit at about Yeah, here it is. We took profit at 576. I didn't want to hold it too long because then time decay would start eating away at it. But got in at 552 and ran it all the way to about 576. So congratulations if you took that trade. I also told you guys about the SPY 505 calls. We took profit on that in the last video. Well, not in the last video, but I told you guys about the 505 calls on SPY in the last video. We took profit on that. So congratulations on that trade as well. We got in like at a really good price. We got in at like 501, something like that. So yeah, congratulations if you took both of those trades. Like I tell you guys, we barely lose in this Discord. What is a loss? Okay. Apple puts we're still holding. I might hedge those. I mean not hedge those. Roll those over until next week. If we break above 167.5 on Apple, then I might close that trade out. But for now, I mean, that's going to be what our first loss of the week, I believe. I could be wrong, but regardless, we barely lose in the Discord. Discord link is in the description below. I show you guys my trades all the time on this channel. I'm very transparent, whether we win or lose. And majority of the time, all you hear me talking about, I mean, it's all here. You can look for a loss. You can pause the video. You can count the losses. You can count the wins. But I'm telling you, the wins outweigh the losses by a mile. So yeah, it sounds like I'm bragging, but I'm very confident in what I do. So it is what it is. I'll take it how you want. But Netflix. So Netflix looks really good for more upside. And again, I didn't want to hold the trade past today, but it really looks good. We can go as high as about 600 right now. I mean, I'm looking at 590, 592 range. 580 was obviously my first target, but we took profit, pretty much right before that. But still, I mean, this thing looks like a beast. It looks like it wants to keep going. As you guys can see, we broke above this daily supply and demand zone. I mean, this is a morning star pattern as well. I mean, Netflix looks crazy right now. If I had to guess, I would say Meta earnings might help Netflix. I could be wrong. It's really tough to tell what correlates with Netflix, but I mean, this thing looks diabolical. 592, like half of this gap fill I'm looking at, we can go as high as about 605, 607, somewhere around that range. But I mean, we got a morning star pattern breaking out of a daily supply and demand zone. My target is 592. I mean, that's really all I have. If Netflix breaks back below 540, then this thing is heading towards 500. But right now, this thing looks absolutely diabolical. Yeah. So that's what I'm looking at as far as Netflix. I mean, it looks beautiful. Not much to really talk about here. As far as if we do get a retest, ideally, I would like to enter right back into about 566 range. So something like this, and then we head higher towards that 592 level. If we do get a retest tomorrow, then I would like to see that move happen towards about 566, 567, and then we head towards that 592 level as high as about 600. So that would be great. Also, if we're looking at exposure for Netflix as well, I don't know if it's probably updated more, but yeah, I mean, there's a lot of it call exposure at around 600. I mean, as you guys can see, there's hardly any puts exposure at that 600 level. So again, I mean, 580, a lot of call exposure, 585, decent amount, and then 600 is your pretty much your golden ticket here. So yeah, I would definitely be looking out for Netflix to break towards the upside towards 600. I would like to see a break above 580, and then I think this thing is just going to head towards that 592 level, and then it breaks above, I would say 593. You're looking at a move towards 600. Easy. Again, you want access to this type of data. It's basically a cheat code, in my opinion. Link is in the description below. All right, so what is next? Google. So I'm in YOLO calls for Google. I alert this to the Discord and let them know that, yeah, this is very risky play. Let me make sure I show you guys. So yeah, I'm in 162.5 Google calls for April 26th. I let them know that it is a very risky play. It is earnings, and then I gave them an option of 170 or 165 contracts. My price target on Google is about 172, 174 if I'm really being optimistic. I think Google is just going to crush earnings. I could be completely wrong, but I think they're going to dominate earnings. I mean, not only based on um, just the whole sentiment, but just based on how Google looks. I mean, Google looks amazing. Google looks right now we're above a weekly supply and demand zone. We broke out of this weekly supply and demand zone, and I just think Google hasn't gotten the shine that other tech stocks got in the last earnings season. Okay, I think Google hasn't made that move yet that we saw happen last season with other tech stocks. If anything, I think Google was going down majority of the last season earnings season. So I could be wrong on that, but regardless, Google just looks absolutely amazing. If Google gets above 160, I think this thing is going to go parabolic. Okay, and earnings might be the cause of that parabolic move. All right, so that's what I'm thinking on Google. Earnings is 50-50, is 100% gambling. You can get IV crushed regardless of how right I think I am or how good my strategy is. Earnings can always turn things around, get IV crushed. We saw it on Netflix. I had a price to, before earnings, Netflix earnings, I had a price target of 580 and it went towards 580, but again, you still got pretty much IV crushed unless you had like in the money calls. I mean, in the money puts. So yeah. But as far as Google goes, I'm looking at about 170, like right up here. Okay. Let me go to the 4 hour time frame, so that's looks a little better. But right up here, we head all the way up to about 174, 175. But if we can get above that 160, I think we're solid on Google. I think we're really solid. And even when we get pullbacks, I mean, Google just keeps holding. It just keeps holding. It doesn't go anywhere. Every time NASDAQ or Q's pulls back, Google just sits here like, yeah, I'm good. I'm going to chill here. So be on the lookout for Google. Again, very risky play if you do decide to play earnings at all. That's about the only thing I'm in besides the Apple puts. But I'm in Google calls. We closed our Netflix calls. We closed our Spy calls. So yeah, pretty much just sitting on a YOLO call for Google, and that's about it. As far as downside goes, until Google breaks above one, I mean below 150, it's hard to be bearish on this thing. I mean, it's doing the complete opposite of what the market is doing half the time. So really hard to be bearish until it breaks back below this weekly supply and demand zone. I just have nothing else for you as far as being bearish on this thing. It looks amazing. That's it. All right. AMD. Oh, I lied. I absolutely lied. We're in AMD calls. We're in AMD 152.5 calls. I lied about being only in Google. Yeah, so we are in 152.5 calls for AMD this week. My price target on it is 157.5. 155 contracts were cheaper if you wanted to get into those as well. But that's what I'm looking at as far as AMD. Um, Again, this thing it doesn't look great in comparison to like Google and Netflix, but still looks good. Following my supply and demand strategy, it still looks good. The strategy will be in the description below. Check that video out. But AMD, I think we can head as high as about 159. I wouldn't even be surprised if we head towards 160 on AMD, 162. Yeah, I got it marked right here. So 162.3 range. But that's what I'm looking at as far as AMD. As far as downside goes, if AMD breaks back below about 151, I would say 150 to be safe. If it breaks back below 150 back into this supply and demand zone, then you're heading back to 145. You break below 145, then you're heading towards 140. Pretty easy. Okay. So that's all I really have as far as AMD. Your first target is 155. After that, you're looking at a move towards 157.5, sorry, and you can go as high as about 158. If you want to be optimistic, then you're looking at about 162. Okay. Also, looking at quant data, the link is in the description below. AMD, we got a lot of call exposure at around 155. We got some at 152.5. So I treated that as a point of support. And then we got a lot of call exposure at around 157.5. And then there's not much after that. that's worth me holding past 157.5. But again, that's what I'm looking at as far as AMD. Nvidia. Wait, what? Nvidia's at Nvidia's at 834 after hours. What? This thing is insane. Oh my gosh. This is insane. And it's crazy. I had a price target of 840 on this. So it is a little bit scary here. It's really I wasn't expecting this. I was not expecting this at all. I mean, given what we saw with SOXL and SMH and how they're moving after hours thanks to Texas Instruments earnings, I guess it makes sense, but wow. So price target still the same. Nvidia, we are looking at a move towards 840. Highest I'm looking at is about 850. Yeah, that's really all I have as far as Nvidia. I mean, it's making majority of the move. If it gets back above 840, then we could be heading back towards the 860s. Okay, so that's what I'm looking at as far as Nvidia. I mean, man, that's pretty insane. 866 will be my next target after 840, and then after that it's pretty much up in the air. Don't I don't think Nvidia can go much higher than that, but it's Nvidia. It's a semiconductor. It's the king of them right now. AI, all that stuff. So be on the lookout for this thing. But yeah, this thing is moving pretty crazy after hours. I need AMD to do the same. Man, that's crazy. But that's what I have for Nvidia. Oh, sorry. As far as downside on Nvidia, I mean, it breaks back into the supply and demand zone at around 823. We're gonna say 823 to be safe. Yeah, there's not much to talk about here. After that, 823, you're pretty much you're illiquid. You're very illiquid. You're very, very illiquid. You can just start plummeting. I would say if it gets back below 800, then yeah, you're just plummeting at that point. So be on the lookout for Nvidia. It's very illiquid. Once it starts dropping, like, and I mean like start dropping below key levels, yeah, brace yourself. But yeah, that's what I have for Nvidia. SMH. So I had a price target of SMH for 210. I didn't go over this in other videos. I said this in the Discord. Yeah, 210 is my target on this. Oh, but the Discord bot did alert this. A few people have been telling me they like the bot, and it's pretty crazy. Hopefully, I can find the SMH puts. I mean calls. Probably won't within this video. We'll do a little more. Yeah. So there were 210 calls for SMH. I just can't find them, but they were definitely here. But regardless, yeah, 210 was pretty much the target for the bot. And as you guys can see, we got some resistance here. We got some turbulence here. So we need to break out of this area. I would say we break above about 214, then SMH can head much higher. Okay. To about 218. Okay. So be on the lookout for SMH. SOXL, I told a Discord member that my target on this was about 35 when it was about like 34. That's not much really, but yeah, I this thing is pretty much just jumping after hours as well, thanks to Texas earnings. So pretty crazy. I really don't have a price target after this, but ideally your next target will be 37, and then this thing can go at 37, 37.5, and then this thing can go as high as 40. So a lot going on after hours that I wasn't expecting. Tesla. I pretty much explained Tesla already earlier in the video without trying to explain it. I think if Tesla can get above 162, there's some hope for maybe 176, 175, but it's really tough for me to see. I don't know. Right now, Tesla is filling these gaps. That's about the best you're getting, and so far it filled the last gap. So I told you guys that normally when you get a rollover and you get back into the pattern, it typically is just retesting the top of the pattern before the next leg down. So you will be looking at something like this because I mean, even now you're seeing Tesla, even though earnings came in, you're seeing Tesla struggle to get past the supply and demand zone right now. Okay, so yeah, next move could be heading down unless maybe we form some type of head and shoulders here. Maybe. I mean, it's pretty ugly. I would say more so of a cup and handle, but yeah, inverse cup and handle. So I mean, Tesla's tough, man. I've been bearish on this thing for so long. It's just hard for me to see it go lower than 140. I do have a price target of 130. I but yeah, that's I'm not gonna drag it too much longer, but obviously, as far as upside goes, you want to see Tesla get above 162. It seems to be struggling there, which is out of the supply and demand zone. So if we open up tomorrow above 162, if you really, I mean, really want to be safe, you can say 164. Then we can be heading as high as about 170, 175 on Tesla. So be on the lookout for that. I probably would trade it given the right circumstances. It just depends on tomorrow. We'll see. But that's really all I have. I'll probably go over Meta earnings to not Meta earnings. Actually, let's look at Meta earnings now. I keep saying Meta earnings. Meta. Let's look at Meta now and let's see what we can get from it. I didn't plot Meta quite yet. Oh my. This so Meta is at 503.9 after hours. I mean, everything is just jumping like crazy after hours. Um, this isn't good. This doesn't look good. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. This does not. Is it doesn't look good. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I mean, all right. So here's why Meta doesn't look good. One, it broke this trend. And I know you're like, well, we went back into the trend and everything like that. You don't fall for that. Don't fall for that trap. Okay, that is a trap. This is how you get trapped when you're just like, oh no, never mind, false alarm. But yeah, Meta could be forming a head and shoulders pattern here. I mean, yeah, if Meta breaks below 470, it can get it can get ugly. It can get really ugly. I think most of its earnings is priced in. I really do. I mean, look at this. If that's not pricing in earnings, I don't know what is. We go to a smaller time frame because a lot of other earnings are mixed into that. I mean, you got earnings here, and then it's pricing in a lot of it. So it went after that earnings, it went from about 470. So I mean, there is hope. I wouldn't say it priced in too much. All the way to 530, yeah. So yeah, 470 is your key level here. It breaks below 470, you're a liquid. You're plummeting. You're dropping fast to 400. You're very illiquid in this area. So yeah, 470 is your key level here. 450 is next. After that, about 450, 452, and then after that, you're just yeah. Good luck. All right, good luck with that. I wouldn't. I'm not gonna touch Meta. I wouldn't touch Meta. I mean, look at this. This I think most of the move was made. To be honest with you. So yeah, that's what I'm looking at as far as Meta. All right, I'm not gonna talk about upside because earnings is in the way. But I mean, I guess if it breaks above 532, you got something there. But I imagine that move would only happen if earnings was really, really good. So yeah, that's all I really have. I dragged this video long enough. Hopefully, you guys got something out of it. Discord link is in the description below. Quant data link is in the description below, where you get access to pretty much where all gamma exposure is, call exposure, puts exposure, dark pools, order flow, news. It has everything. Okay, so check that out in the link below, and that's all I have. So until the next video, traders, have a good one.